In regards to sync, a lot of it is about reputation, and that doesn't necessarily mean you have to have done something big. What it does mean is that you have to have a reputation for delivering on time, because quite often the deadlines are really short. You know, I sometimes have an evening in which to deliver a whole project. And quality, and basically be open to, if it does go to the next level, to be able to communicate with the people who are involved to narrow it down, because undoubtedly, even when something is accepted, they'll want some tweaks. So there's no kind of, you know, going, oh, now they want to change this. It's just what you have to do. So I would say, if somebody who's starting out, get talking to some people, get networking, associate if you can with a sync agency who have a good rep. You know, do a lot of demo stuff. SoundCloud really helps. If you can put stuff to picture, put it onto YouTube. Also, to sending stuff, people don't send them links in download links. People don't want to download links. They don't know what's on there. They're going to be nervous about it. They're not going to have time. You have to download it. Rah rah rah. You can send them a quick SoundCloud link, and it takes them to something, and it's all laid out in front of them. Even if they listen to it for 10 seconds, if they're going to have their interest piqued, they're going to continue listening to it. They can just go boom, boom. So I would highly recommend SoundCloud for people who are trying to get through or trying to get some attention noticed. Everybody always insists that you find yourself a niche and you work within that niche and you exploit that niche. And I think that's a very, very good plan. However, it's not how I've done things at all. You know, there is derogatory comments for both ways. There's you can say one trick pony or jack of all trades, master of none. You know, so they're the things. If you can find yourself a nice little bit of ground in the middle where you can work on some stuff and put your stamp on different genres, and that's pretty good. But if you're breaking into something, find yourself a little niche. I would find yourself a niche way in, and then you have the opportunity to sort of choose. The other composers I speak to these days, everybody is, you know, some people are doing some songwriting for, you know, on projects. The projects in general are so much larger now. You know, say for an example, a computer game. You know, there could be licenses, so there could be existing track licenses that go on there. By the same token, they might want an original song to go on that. So the composer would more than likely be commissioned to either write with maybe somebody who's done one of the tracks on the licensed soundtracks. They might write with them, and they might end up doing a releasable, shall we say, single to go onto that, as well as doing the score. You know, and the lines blur more and more and more. The important thing is to be able to put your stamp on whatever you are working on at the time, and so people say, "Oh, that definitely sounds like," you know. You know, in regards to recording these days and putting stuff down, what you need is just less and less and less. So you need a computer. You can even get free DAWs now, DAWs, and audio interfaces are so cheap these days. You know, you can get reasonable ones that still sound good, and it's just to get you going, just to get your ideas out of your head and into the computer, and to record them. You know, I would highly recommend, you know, if you're very much a live musician, I would say microphones. You can get very, very cheap, very, very reasonable ones that sound fantastic. You can even get ones that plug straight into the USB. Me personally, I would always go through a preamp, because it can make a world of difference. And you'll find that those recordings that you made, you know, that you've recorded, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, all of a sudden when you dig them out, and you might be able to use them in current recordings as well. So the source material that you're putting down is kind of important. But if you've got an idea and you need to get it down and you want to put it there, if it sounds great, it sounds great. You know, you don't have to be in a completely static room with lots of, you know, acoustic treatment. If it sounds great, it sounds great. Simple as that. When a brief comes in, It varies greatly. It varies from a couple of sentences on what they think they want for something that hasn't been filmed as yet, right the way up to fully locked edit with CGI, all the video, all the effects, all the sound effects, a very, very clear brief, and already knowing that they want 30, 60, 90, 15-second edits. So those are the two sides of the spectrum, and everything in between. You know, I've recently got one in that just has an animatic, so that's just basically a sequence of still images that are drawn normally in pencil, you know, and they are put together into a 30-second edit just to show roughly what's going on, and sometimes you have to score to that. And sometimes the creatives are very good at the briefs that they're giving, and sometimes they don't know themselves what they want until they hear it, you know. So it might be a bit vague, and sometimes you get, you know, commercials that end up on telly and they sound nothing like the brief that you were giving, and you're like, how did it end up there? And other times you get ones where you're like, you know what, that's a heck of a sight better than the one I put forward, and it does the brief heck of a sight better. And then other times your ones get on there and they're like, yeah. An average brief would be a movie file with a edit that is quite often cut to the time length, so 30 or 60 seconds. They might make tweaks in the middle, which of course is a bit of a pain because then you have to start shuffling stuff about, but it's part of the job. And then normally you would get a separate write-up onto what they're looking for musically, what they are looking for and what they are not looking for as well. So then the first thing I will do is see what I have in my library, because I have an extensive library of music that's already there, and I'll say, okay, well, what have I got that's existing, or what have I got that maybe is similar, or they've had a similar brief to, and then I'll have a look at the pictures that I've done for those. Maybe there's something that I can rekindle that I've just left sat there, because at the time it sort of ended up becoming a dead end, but maybe it might open up for this one. And then what I would do is I would try and get the palette of sounds that I want to use within it, and see what's working and what isn't, and get an array of instrumentation. So it would be, you know, if it's strings, then I'd say, okay, well, you know, are we going to use a full string orchestra, or are we going to use just elements? You know, if it's a more dainty piece, you know, we'll get the right piano, because there are so many options in regards to pianos now. You know, I like slightly warped pianos, slightly older sounding, slightly, you know, that I like that kind of stuff. But that's because in general I like dark stuff. You know, then and have a look at the instrumentation and what I want to use, and then it's pretty much, you know, the looking at the picture and working out what bits I want to cue and what bits I don't want to cue, and you know, what needs to build and where the crescendos need to happen, and find a tempo pretty much. Once you found your tempo, and then discover that tempo doesn't work, and then you have to do tempo changes, and then, you know, that it's sort of like where you need a crescendo or you need a soft moment, actually sort of is like 1/24th the way through a bar or something random, so you can't end the piece properly there, or you can't do the transformation there. So then you have to think about, okay, well, how am I going to make that work, and slot everything together. It's quite a lot to do, depending on if there's a lot of action or a lot of emotional changes within 30 seconds. You know, getting it to work up and down.